The great chamber of the Zerkai Empire was unlike anything Elia's rook had ever seen. Towering walls of polished crystal reflected strange, shifting lights that seemed to hum in tune with the whispers of the crowd. Thousands of alien delegates filled the massive hall, their bodies and voices unlike anything on Earth. Some had skin that shimmered like liquid metal, others moved with multiple limbs in perfect synchrony. The sheer diversity was dizzying, but what made Elia's heart race was the presence of Marith, the Eternal herself. The alien queen of the Zerkai, ruler of hundreds of systems, floated above her throne with an elegance that was both terrifying and beautiful. Elia's, humanity's ambassador, stood in the central chamber alone, a tiny figure compared to the scale of the assembly. His suit, specially designed to survive the chamber's atmospheric conditions, felt suffocating. Every eye in the hall seemed fixed on him, curious, expectant, and judgmental. Every alien in attendance knew the meaning of the ritual about to take place. Every species in the chamber understood it except, perhaps, the humans standing before them. The Zerkai had summoned him for a reason known across the galaxy, the offer of a bond with their most revered lineage. Marith's daughter, Shira, was considered a living symbol of their empire's strength and wisdom. To marry her was to gain the favor of the Zerkai, a gift no civilization had ever refused. To decline was almost unthinkable. Ambassador Rook, the Queen's voice resonated through the hall, a sound both melodic and commanding. We honor your presence in this chamber. We know your species is new to the stars, fragile yet ambitious. We offer you a gift unlike any other. At the end of it, Shira stood, her appearance both alien and eerily familiar. Her skin glowed softly, her eyes seemed to hold galaxies, and her presence radiated power and intelligence. She looked at Elias without fear or judgment, only curiosity. You would have my daughter as your bond, the Queen continued. To accept is to join your species with ours. Protection, guidance, and shared destiny will follow. Refusal is a path that few dare to tread. What say you? He spoke, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. We are honored by your offer, Queen Marith, but we cannot accept. No one had ever refused the Queen's offer. The audacity of his refusal hung in the air like an electric charge. Explain yourself, Marith said, her voice calm but sharp, cutting through the whispers. Why do you refuse my daughter? Every species understood power. Every species except humans. Elias straightened, meeting the Queen's gaze without flinching. Because we do not trade people for power or protection. Humanity does not make alliances through forced bonds. We fight, we struggle, and we survive, not because we are offered comfort or safety, but because we choose to. You risk the survival of your species for pride? A delegate from the Valen system hissed, its voice like a chorus of wind chimes. Do you not understand the power you defy? We will survive not by kneeling, but by standing. She simply observed, her eyes reflecting a galaxy of experiences Elias could not hope to comprehend. Shira, the Queen's daughter, stepped closer to her mother, tilting her head in a gesture that seemed almost human. Perhaps, Mother, he does not fear us. Perhaps there is strength in what he says. How could a species so small, so fragile-looking, have the audacity to refuse the most powerful being in the galaxy? Marith's expression remained unreadable. Do you think your words are enough to protect your people from the consequences of refusal? She asked. We are not cruel, Ambassador, but we are eternal. We do not forgive easily. I do not speak for comfort, only for truth. Humanity has faced extinction more times than I can count. We have survived famine, war, disease, and betrayal. Every time we were told we could not survive, we did. Not because others helped us, but because we would not give up on ourselves or each other. That is our strength. The chamber seemed to shift as if weighing his words. The delegates whispered to one another, recalculating their assumptions. The Queen leaned forward, intrigued despite herself. She had faced countless races, many who were cunning, cruel, or unstoppable, and yet there was something different about humans, something unpredictable, something alive. Your defiance is noted, she said finally, her voice soft but commanding. But words alone are insufficient. Actions, Ambassador, prove truth. Every being present could feel the weight of history pivoting on a single decision. To refuse the Queen's bond was unthinkable. To do so with calm, reasoned courage was extraordinary. Shira, watching Elias, smiled faintly. She did not mock him. She did not feel anger. She felt curiosity, the same curiosity that had driven her species to explore, conquer, and endure for eons. She wondered what it would be like to walk among humans, to see how such fragile creatures carried themselves with such unyielding will. The queen regarded her daughter and then looked back at Elias. "You are small, human," she said, almost to herself, "yet your voice carries as if it belongs to the stars themselves." "I speak for my people, not for myself," he said. "If humans are to survive, we must choose our own path, even when that path is dangerous. We assert we do not tempt wrath. We endure it because we endure all else. That is what it means to be human." She had faced rebellion, treachery, and conquest, yet this tiny creature's courage was unlike anything she had witnessed. She had offered her daughter as both honor and protection, expecting obedience. She had not expected truth. "Ambassador," she said slowly, deliberately, "you refuse the greatest opportunity your species could receive, yet you do so without fear. That is remarkable. But words cannot change reality. The galaxy is not kind to those who refuse the path laid before them." Some delegates leaned forward, eyes wide. Others whispered, eyes darting between the human and the queen. The queen regarded him silently, her gaze weighing the truth in his words. Finally, she inclined her head, a subtle acknowledgement that the conversation was not over. "Very well, human, your answer is heard, but the consequences of defiance are not yet decided. You have courage. That I grant you. But the galaxy has tests, and the next will reveal whether your words hold weight." Shira's eyes lingered on him as the assembly began to murmur again. She did not look at him as a threat, nor as a curiosity. She looked at him as a puzzle, one she was eager to understand. And in that gaze, Elias found something he had not expected, a silent acknowledgement of respect. The chamber slowly began to empty, though whispers of disbelief and awe followed him. He had refused the daughter of the most powerful ruler in the galaxy. He had spoken for all of humanity, and he had done so without fear. For the first time since arriving in this alien empire, Elias allowed himself a small, private smile. The path ahead would be dangerous, perhaps deadly. But it was the path humanity had always chosen, uncertain, difficult, and entirely their own. And in that choice lay the true power of a human being. The hall was silent long after Elias Rook had walked back to his quarters. The echo of his refusal still lingered, weaving through the minds of every delegate present. No one had dared such defiance. The idea that a human could reject the queen's daughter, the symbol of the Zerkai Empire itself, seemed impossible, and yet it had happened. In his quarters, Elias removed his suit, letting the alien atmosphere of the chamber fade from his senses. Despite the exhaustion, his mind was sharp, replaying every moment. The queen had not reacted with anger, yet that was unusual. Mareth had seen countless species rise and fall before her. She understood the language of power, manipulation, and fear. To refuse her daughter was more than audacious. It was unprecedented. He knew that the consequences could be severe. The Zerkai were patient, but they were also eternal. Their punishments were calculated, designed to last lifetimes, and often included subtle forms of humiliation that could cripple an entire species' reputation. And yet, Elias had chosen this path knowingly. Humanity had survived worse. They had faced extinction countless times and emerged stronger. The message from the chamber had been clear. You speak boldly, human, but words will not save you. In less than a day, transmissions from dozens of systems had reached Earth and its colonies. Delegates, traders, spies, and ambassadors all reported the same thing. A human had refused the Zerkai Queen's daughter. Some viewed it as foolish, others as remarkable, and a few, those who understood subtle power, as a signal that humanity was not to be underestimated. In the Zerkai capital, Mareth convened her council. She floated above her throne, her presence commanding absolute silence. Shira, her daughter, hovered beside her, her expression unreadable. "My mother," Shira said softly, "the human does not fear us. There is something in him, something different. His species is small, fragile, untested. He speaks with courage, yes, but courage without strategy is useless. Yet, I sense that there is more here than mere arrogance." Every species in the galaxy, save humanity, had rules, obedience, hierarchy, and survival through compliance. Humans had none of these rules, or at least they obeyed them differently. Back on Earth, Elias prepared for the next stage. The refusal was not the end, it was the beginning. The galaxy would not simply accept words. They would test humans. That had always been the way. And humans had survived tests by refusing to follow conventional paths. 2 days after the incident, the Queen summoned Elias again. This time, he was escorted to a smaller chamber, one designed for private conversation. The walls were of deep crystal, casting shifting light across the room, but the atmosphere was calmer than the great chamber. "You have refused our greatest offer," Marith began, her voice quiet but firm. "And yet you stand without fear. You speak of choice, of survival, of will. But choice comes with consequences, human. Are you prepared for what lies ahead? We survive because we do not give up. And if survival comes with consequence, we will meet it head-on. Because we do not value life only when it is safe. Life has meaning when it is ours to shape. Humanity does not trade freedom for comfort. We do not ask for others' protection because we will fight for our own. That is why we refuse your daughter, not out of disrespect but out of principle." Most species would have collapsed under the weight of Marith's offer. Most would have complied without question. Humans did not. "You speak boldly," the queen said, floating closer. "Bold words are easy when survival is not immediately threatened. What happens when your people face an extinction-level crisis? Will you still refuse the hand of my daughter then?" "Then we will face it. That is what humans do. We endure, adapt, and overcome. We do not accept shortcuts because shortcuts make us weak. True strength comes from choice, from struggle, from working together to overcome what seems impossible." And yet there was truth in his words. Humans had survived disasters no one else could have. They were unpredictable, chaotic, and stubborn in ways the galaxy had not seen before. "Very well," she said finally. "If words are not enough, actions will prove your worth. You claim that humans survive through will and strategy. The galaxy will test this claim. But understand this, we do not spare those who fail. Your species may yet prove to be fragile. The next stage of your journey will begin soon. The survival of your species, as you define it, will be examined under conditions you cannot yet imagine. The test would be difficult, but humans had never thrived by taking the easy path. They had survived because they had chosen to endure when others would have submitted." Shira, watching from the chamber, floated silently. She had not spoken during the conversation, but her thoughts were alive with curiosity. Most species would have crumbled in the face of the queen's power, yet this human had not. He had stood tall, calm, and unyielding, and there was something in that calmness, something beyond courage. There was intelligence, foresight, and most of all, choice. "Mother," she said softly, almost to herself, "he is different. Perhaps we have underestimated them. We shall see if this human species can endure what is to come." And in that courage, they saw a reflection of themselves, their history, and their potential. Elias spent the next few days preparing. He studied alien strategies, trained his crew in unconventional tactics, and analyzed possible scenarios for the impending test. The Zerkai would not allow failure, and the galaxy would watch every move. But humanity thrived under pressure. Adversity sharpened them, forced them to innovate, and made them stronger. When the day of the test finally arrived, Elias stood once more in the Queen's chamber. This time it was smaller, private, designed for observation rather than ceremony. The Queen's eyes were fixed on him, calm yet unyielding. Shira's gaze followed, still curious, still questioning. "Human," Marith said, "you claim that your species survives through will and ingenuity. Today you will demonstrate it. You will face a trial designed to test your truth. Fail, and your species will understand the cost of defiance. Succeed, and perhaps your claim of strength holds merit. We will show you what humanity is capable of, not because we wish to prove anything to you, but because we refuse to bow." It was the map of the trial, a simulation of chaos designed to break species, to test obedience and cunning. Elias studied it carefully. The situation was dire. Rogue fleets, environmental catastrophes, and political pressures were all combined into a scenario that would overwhelm any species unprepared for crisis. Most would panic, most would submit, and most would fail. But humans thrived in chaos. They had done so for millennia. They had survived floods, fires, wars, plagues, and betrayals. The simulation was formidable, but it was not insurmountable. He turned to his team, his voice calm but resolute. "Listen carefully. We do not beg for mercy, we do not wait for instructions, and we do not accept defeat before we try. Humanity survives because we act, adapt, and endure. Today we survive as ourselves, nothing more, nothing less." The galaxy would test humanity, but humanity had always thrived under pressure. And in that refusal, in that choice, lay a power the galaxy had not yet learned to respect. Elias took a deep breath. The trial would begin. The Queen would watch, and humanity would show that survival was not given, it was earned. The simulation chamber was vast, stretching far beyond what human eyes could see. Star systems, fleets, and natural disasters appeared as projections in three-dimensional space, glowing with a strange, unearthly light. Elias Rook and his team stood at the center, dwarfed by the sheer scale of the trial. The Queen's crystal orb hovered above them, broadcasting their every action to Merith and her council. Shira, the Queen's daughter, observed with intense curiosity, her eyes following each movement like a predator tracking its prey, though without hostility. The challenge was clear: survive impossible odds. A rogue fleet of Zerkai warships, enhanced by artificial intelligence, moved across the holographic galaxies, seeking to annihilate human colonies. Meanwhile, simulated asteroids and gamma storms threatened planetary populations. Political messages from other civilizations, some demanding submission, others offering aid in exchange for loyalty, flooded communications channels. It was a test of strategy, resource management, and moral decision-making all at once. Elias studied the scenario carefully. He could have asked for the Queen's intervention, relied on her daughter's influence, or even sought technical help from other species. But he knew that human strength was not independence. Humanity had survived the ice ages, plagues, and wars without anyone holding their hand. The test was designed to break them by forcing submission. He would show the galaxy that humans refused to bow even under pressure. "Listen up," Elias said to his team, keeping his voice calm amidst the simulated chaos. "This is not a game. Every decision we make affects millions of lives. We do not beg for help, we do not panic, and we do not compromise our principles. Humanity survives because we think, adapt, and act together. That is what we do now." Elias began by prioritizing the threats. The rogue fleet would attack key colonies first. If these colonies fell, human morale and resources would collapse. Yet the simulation allowed them to see multiple futures, branching possibilities based on their choices. Elias decided to create decoys, smaller fleets mimicking real targets to mislead the AI. While the enemy pursued false leads, human command would reinforce strategic planets and evacuate civilians where necessary. The first few moves were tense. The Zerkai AI predicted that humans would act cautiously, waiting for reinforcements or diplomatic aid. Instead, Elias coordinated multiple simultaneous strikes, not to defeat the fleet outright, but to confuse it, forcing it to make errors. Small human ships darted between stars, weaving patterns the AI could not anticipate. Colonies that were supposed to fall survived, their populations safe thanks to the human strategy. Shira leaned closer to her mother, her eyes wide with interest. "They are not just surviving. They are forcing the AI to react, to make mistakes. They are clever." Messages from other species began arriving, some offering help in exchange for loyalty, others demanding that humans surrender or face obliteration. Many humans might have been tempted to accept, valuing survival over principle. Not Elias. "We do not trade freedom for safety," he told his team. "We survive on our own terms." He ignored the offers, focusing instead on clever ways to leverage diplomacy without surrendering humanity's independence. By the second day, the simulation had escalated. Asteroids began colliding with human colonies, and some warships were destroyed. Yet humans adapted. Engineers rerouted energy from less critical systems to shield vital areas. Civilians were evacuated using unorthodox methods. Freighters disguised as cargo vessels, planetary transport tubes rerouted to safe zones, even communication networks used to mislead the AI fleet. Every action was calculated, every move designed to maximize survival without surrender. The Queen's daughter, Shira, watched with growing admiration. Humans were strange, fragile yet daring. Small yet effective. They did not follow tradition or fear power. They acted on will, intellect, and cooperation. She had studied hundreds of species in her lifetime, but these humans were different. Every choice, every strategy reflected a species that thrived not because of dominance, but because of ingenuity and stubborn perseverance. Elias moved from console to console, issuing orders, adjusting strategy, and responding to crises in real time. He was calm, precise, and unyielding. Every human present followed his lead, not because of fear or hierarchy, but because they believed in the mission and in each other. The synergy was remarkable. What the AI had assumed would be chaos became a symphony of coordinated effort. By the third day, the rogue fleet had been slowed, though not destroyed. The humans had lost some ships, but the colonies remained safe. The AI, designed to predict patterns and exploit weaknesses, was faltering. It could not anticipate the humans' willingness to sacrifice resources to save lives, their ability to coordinate across multiple fronts, or their refusal to take the easy path. The Queen and her council observed silently, their skepticism slowly giving way to fascination. Merith's gaze, sharp as a blade, was fixed on Elia's. She had expected fear, hesitation, and perhaps surrender. Instead, she saw calm, strategy, and determination. Humans were not playing by the rules of the galaxy, and that made them dangerous in ways she had never considered. "Mother," Shira whispered, "they are proving what they said. They survive not because they are strongest, but because they refuse to be controlled. They think, adapt, and endure. It is remarkable. We will see if this courage holds under greater pressure." Many species would panic, sending fleets in random patterns, abandoning civilians, or attempting impossible rescues. Elias studied the storm, then turned to his team. "We do not panic. We do not react blindly. We assess, we plan, and we act together. Some worlds we cannot save, but those we can, we will. And we will do it on our terms." One group deployed mobile shelters and diversionary shields, moving populations to temporary habitats hidden from the storm. Another rerouted energy from military installations to power protective shields over the most critical zones. A third team used deception, projecting false planetary signatures to mislead sensors, ensuring that the storm's destructive energy was partially diverted. As the storm raged, humans worked tirelessly, coordinating across thousands of light years. The simulation attempted to overwhelm them with simultaneous crises, yet they adapted, improvising at every turn. They lost some colonies, but the majority were protected. Every action reflected a species that did not simply react but created solutions where none seemed possible. Shira's admiration grew. "They are extraordinary," she said softly. "I have seen conquerors, geniuses, strategists, but nothing like this. They do not fight like others. They endure, and in enduring they survive. Perhaps the galaxy has underestimated humans for too long." Elias coordinated one final maneuver. Small strike teams lured the AI-controlled ships into gravitational traps, while human forces evacuated civilians from threatened worlds. Engineers rerouted power to create energy barriers that minimized the storm's impact. Every move required perfect timing, flawless execution, and trust in each other. And they succeeded. Not perfectly, some losses occurred, but enough worlds survived, enough lives were protected, and the rogue fleet had been neutralized. The humans had endured every test, not because of raw power, but because of ingenuity, determination, and the refusal to surrender. Shira floated closer to her mother. "They have done it, Mother. They have survived every challenge, every attack, and every pressure. And they did it their way. They are remarkable." "Perhaps we have underestimated them," the Queen said quietly, almost to herself. "They are small, fragile, and yet they endure. That is a lesson the galaxy must learn." Humans had answered with ingenuity, courage, and choice, and in doing so they had changed how the galaxy would perceive them forever. The simulation ended and the crystal projections faded. The chamber returned to normal, but the impact of the trial remained. The Queen and her daughter remained silent, observing the humans with renewed respect. Other delegates whispered among themselves, reassessing the species they had long considered weak and insignificant. Elias took a deep breath, aware that the trial was only part of a larger test, the test of recognition, of influence, and of humanity's place in the galaxy. But for now, the first stage was complete. Humans had survived not because they were given guidance or protection, but because they had acted as humans always had, with courage, intelligence, and the unyielding refusal to be controlled. Shira smiled faintly at him. "You have done more than survive, human. You have taught the galaxy a lesson it will not forget. And perhaps you have taught me as well." Every species that had been observing humanity's response to the Queen's test had seen something unexpected. Humans were not weak, and they were not predictable. They had survived impossible odds, defied a powerful empire, and preserved the lives of countless colonies without surrendering their principles. Across trading hubs, councils, and fleets, whispers of disbelief spread like wildfire. Humanity had made an impression that no one could ignore. Elias Rook returned to the Zerkai capital for the next council session. This time, it was not a trial of survival, but a council convened to evaluate the consequences of humanity's actions. The great chamber was filled again, delegates from countless species murmuring in anticipation. Some were curious, some hostile, and some deeply impressed. And at the center of it all floated Merith the Eternal, her presence commanding attention without effort. Beside her was Shira, her daughter, who had watched humanity's ingenuity with growing admiration. "Ambassador Rook," the Queen began, her voice calm but firm, "you have completed the trial. Your species has survived challenges that no other would have. You have preserved lives, adapted to chaos, and refused the path of submission. This council convenes to discuss the implications of your defiance and your strength. That is our nature, and we do so without compromise. Humans earn it by actions, by will, and by the courage to do what is right, even when threatened. We do not demand allegiance. We do not manipulate or beg. We simply act, and the galaxy observes the result. Humans were small and seemingly fragile, yet their resourcefulness, determination, and strategic thinking had proven them capable of surviving impossible circumstances. No one could deny the results of the trial. Shira floated closer to the Queen. "Mother, they have shown what they said was true. They survive not because we guide them, but because they refuse to be guided. They have created solutions where none seemed possible, protected lives others would have sacrificed, and refused shortcuts. This is something we have rarely seen. That may prove dangerous or invaluable." Marith listened to every argument, weighing her centuries of experience against the undeniable proof of human capability. Elias remained calm. He knew that diplomacy would now be tested as severely as strategy had been. He had survived the trial, but the political consequences of defying the Zerkai were still unfolding. He would need to navigate this council carefully, proving that humanity's independence did not equate to recklessness. "Ambassador," Marith said finally, her voice cutting through the chatter, "your people have survived the impossible. That is undeniable. Yet survival is only one measure of strength. How will your species use this capability? Will you act wisely, in concert with the galaxy, or will your independence become recklessness that threatens peace? If the galaxy wishes to partner with us, it will be on mutual respect and equality, not dominance or submission." The result was not chaos, but order born from courage and ingenuity. Shira's eyes softened as she looked at Elias. "Your people do not act like others. They do not fear the mighty, nor do they bow to power. They act with purpose, even when it seems impossible. That is extraordinary. The galaxy must now decide how to respond. You are no longer seen as weak. You are no longer dismissed. That is both a gift and a challenge. Others will watch you closely, some with admiration, others with envy, and some with hostility. Those who observe us will see our actions speak louder than words. Some species considered forming alliances with them, recognizing the value of ingenuity, courage, and principle. Others feared the unpredictability of a species that refused to bow, wondering if humans might one day challenge even the Zerkai themselves. Back on Earth, the news reached every corner of human civilization. There was no panic, no relief. Instead, there was pride. Humanity had survived a trial designed to break them, and they had done so without compromise. Citizens, soldiers, and scientists alike felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were small in the cosmic scale, yet capable of incredible ingenuity, courage, and moral strength. Elias returned to his quarters to rest, though sleep was difficult. His mind was alive with thoughts of strategy, diplomacy, and the challenges yet to come. Humanity had proven its capability, but the galaxy would continue to test them in ways that could not yet be imagined. And yet he felt the familiar spark that had carried humans through centuries of adversity, the refusal to surrender, the determination to endure, and the courage to act according to principle. Shira visited him in his quarters, a rare gesture of curiosity and respect. "You are unlike any species I have studied," she said softly. "Your people survive not by power or fear, but by choice. You act with purpose, and yet you do not seek to dominate. That is rare in the galaxy. I have observed countless species bend under pressure, beg for favor, or sacrifice principles for survival. You do not. You are stubborn, yes, but also clever. Perhaps your defiance is not a threat, but a lesson. We can only act as humans have always acted, with courage, ingenuity, and principle." Some sought alliances, others sought to test humanity themselves, and a few hoped to manipulate the humans' newfound reputation. Elias navigated these encounters with the same calm, deliberate approach he had used in the trial. Humanity would not bow, but they would act with intelligence, strategy, and integrity. Each encounter reinforced a simple truth. Humans were not weak, nor were they predictable. They survived because they refused to be controlled, because they acted with ingenuity and principle, and because they were willing to take risks that others would not. In every interaction, the galaxy was reminded that humanity was a species to be reckoned with, not through force or intimidation, but through the quiet strength of choice, courage, and resilience. In the Queen's chambers, Marith and Shira observed the results. "They have survived the trial," the Queen said, her voice calm but thoughtful. "They have navigated diplomacy, adversity, and observation. They are small, yet their impact is vast. Perhaps we underestimated the power of choice and principle. That is something rare." The galaxy began to take notice, and even the Zerkai themselves began to adjust their expectations. Humans were no longer just a new species, fragile and naive. They were survivors, thinkers, and problem solvers. They were unpredictable, persistent, and principled. And in that, they held a power greater than any weapon or fleet could provide. Ilias looked out at the stars from the Zerkai capital. He knew the road ahead would be difficult. The galaxy would continue to challenge humanity, and not every test would be survived without loss. Yet he also knew that humans had proven something extraordinary. They could endure, adapt, and thrive, not by bending to power, but by refusing to bow and by acting according to principle. Shira's voice came quietly from behind him. "You have changed the way the galaxy sees your species. Perhaps one day it will even change the way it sees us." They had survived impossible odds, defied the most powerful empire, and preserved their principles. And in doing so, they had shown the universe that humanity was not weak, not controllable, and not predictable. In that simple truth lay the real power of humans: the refusal to bow, the courage to act, and the determination to endure, no matter the cost. The galaxy had been watching humanity closely ever since Ilias Rook and his team had survived the Zerkai trial. Stories of human ingenuity, courage, and stubbornness had spread across hundreds of systems, and now every major species had begun reconsidering what it meant to underestimate Earth's children. Some called it defiance, others called it brilliance. Ilias knew it was simply the human way. They did not bow, they did not fear, they acted according to principle. The next council meeting was the most important yet. Delegates from dozens of systems filled the great chamber, all curious about the humans' next moves. Marith, the Zerkai queen, floated at the center, her expression calm but unreadable. Shira hovered beside her, watching the humans with a mixture of respect and curiosity. "Ambassador Rook," Marith began, her voice carrying the weight of centuries, "you and your species have survived challenges no one expected. You have demonstrated ingenuity, courage, and independence. The Council must now decide your place in the galaxy. Speak, and we will listen. We seek only to survive, to grow, and to act according to principle. We do not demand alliances or favors. We act as humans always have, with courage, intelligence, and perseverance. That is how we wish to exist among the stars." Instead, they heard clarity. Humanity had proven that strength was not just in fleets or weapons, but in will, ingenuity, and moral courage. Shira's eyes softened as she looked at Ilias. "They do not act like any other species I have known. They act with purpose, yet without malice. They survive because they choose to, not because they are forced. That is remarkable. Humanity's actions are guided by principle, compassion, and reason. We cooperate when it aligns with what is right. We refuse when it threatens our freedom or the lives of innocents. That is the measure of our strength. They have survived challenges meant to break them. But can they endure politics, diplomacy, and deception as well as warfare? You will see that these qualities serve us well, even in matters of diplomacy." The galaxy could no longer dismiss them as weak or insignificant. Shira turned to her mother. "Mother, they are not just survivors, they are teachers. They show the galaxy that strength is not always in dominance, but in will, intelligence, and morality. Perhaps even we can learn from them. Ambassador, your species has proven itself. You have survived trials designed to test obedience, strategy, and morality. You have endured scrutiny, deception, and crisis, and you have acted with integrity. For that, you have earned our respect. But what do you ask of us now?" Humanity wanted only what they had always valued: respect, equality, and the freedom to define their own destiny. "We ask only for recognition," Ilias said. "Recognition that humans are capable, principled, and resilient. Recognition that we act according to our values and that our choices matter. Recognition that humanity can exist among the stars as equals, without coercion or control." Marith inclined her head slowly, her expression calm but decisive. "So be it. Humanity will be recognized as a species capable of survival, ingenuity, and principled action. You will hold the same rights in the Council as any other member without compulsion or hierarchy. Your independence will be respected, and your actions observed with trust, not fear. This is unprecedented, but your species has proven worthy. You have done more than survive, Ambassador. You have changed the way the galaxy perceives your species. You have shown that courage, principle, and ingenuity are as powerful as any weapon or fleet. That is our nature, and it will guide us among the stars. Even former rivals began to cooperate, recognizing the value of a species that could survive, adapt, and innovate without compromise. Back on Earth, Elias addressed the Council of Human Leaders. We have achieved recognition, but the journey does not end here. The galaxy will continue to challenge us. Some will admire us, some will fear us, and others will seek to test our principles. We must continue to act with integrity, ingenuity, and courage. Humanity's strength lies not in domination, but in choice. They understood what had been accomplished. Humanity had survived trials that no other species could, had refused submission without destruction, and had earned recognition as equals in a galaxy long dominated by hierarchy and control. Shira, observing from the Zerkai capital, reflected on what she had seen. Humans are extraordinary, fragile yet unyielding. Small yet capable of immense impact. They act with courage, intelligence, and principle. Perhaps they are the future the galaxy needs, a reminder that strength is not always in power, but in will, ingenuity, and moral courage. They have shown that submission is not required to survive, that ingenuity and principle can overcome even the greatest challenges. We will watch them closely, and we will learn from them as well. Humanity's place among the galaxy's civilizations was now secure, not because of dominance, but because of principle, courage, and ingenuity. They had survived impossible trials, refused coercion, and earned recognition on their own terms. And yet, Elias knew that the real journey was only beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with wonders and dangers, allies and rivals. Humans would face new trials, new challenges, and new opportunities, but they would face them as they always had, together with ingenuity, courage, and the refusal to surrender to force or fear. Shira approached him one last time before returning to her mother. Your species has shown the galaxy that survival is not about obedience nor about power. It is about will, choice, and courage. You have changed the way the stars see humanity, and perhaps even how they see themselves. Small, fragile, yet capable of immense courage and intelligence. Perhaps humanity will remind the galaxy that strength is not always in power or domination, but in will, ingenuity, and moral courage. They had refused submission, acted with ingenuity, and proven that the human spirit could endure even the most impossible challenges. The galaxy had learned something new. Humans were not weak. Humans were not predictable. Humans could survive, adapt, and thrive on their own terms, and in that truth lay a power no fleet, weapon, or empire could ever take away. Elias gazed at the stars, knowing that the future held endless possibilities, dangers, and wonders. Humanity's place among the stars was secure, earned through courage, principle, and unyielding will. They would face the galaxy as equals, and the universe would never forget that humans refused to bow, even when faced with the greatest power known. And in that refusal, the galaxy learned the true meaning of strength. Not domination, not fear, but choice, courage, and the unbreakable spirit of humanity.